As the presidency, we've noted with concern the reports that have since surfaced following this visit by the president to Zimbabwe, identifying an individual who is a person of interest to our law enforcement, who was also present during the visit. President Ramaphosa had no prior knowledge of who will be present during the visit, nor was he familiar with the said individual. The president flew to Zimbabwe for a meeting with his counterpart and nothing else. The president will further encourage our law enforcement agencies to continue with pursuing the matters that are under investigation involving these individuals or individual, and to do so with no fear or any form of hesitation. Look, one will understand the criticism, one will understand the concern when our president is being seen in a foreign country with people that are, as I've described them, persons of interest to our law enforcement. That will be understandable. But equally, I will beg you to appreciate the fact that the president was invited by his counterpart to Zimbabwe. He had no prior knowledge of who would be there. The meeting was arranged to be a very informal, relaxed sort of engagement, albeit over serious issues concerning the two countries. And so the president will have not had any prior sense of who will be there and who they are and so on. And when he was there, he still had no sense of who this person was until the report surfaced and we pointed out to him that, oh, by the way, this is now the issue. And that's why the message is quite important that the president encourages our law enforcement agencies to vigorously pursue or continue to pursue the investigations that they've commenced against these individuals or individuals without any hesitation. So they shouldn't hesitate just because they've seen these pictures doing the rounds on social media that now they must not, or they must pull their foot off the pedal and they must not proceed with the investigations. They should, and do so with the independence that they have, that is embedded within our legal framework. So, but yeah, one will understand the criticism and one will appreciate the concerns.
So last week I made a call on social media for foreigners based in South Africa to send me DMs to see if we could find solutions to the anti-immigration issues in South Africa, to the fact that a lot of foreigners in South Africa are here illegally, and what the underlying issues may be. I wrote a number of pieces after getting probably over 500 DMs across Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. But I want to read this one in particular because most of the people that DM'd me were actually Zimbabweans. Zimbabweans are never going to leave countries like South Africa until the ANC stops endorsing ZANU-PF, which is the leading political party in Zim. Thabo Mbeki is referenced a lot by a lot of the guys that send me DMs. Border control stops taking bribes to let Zimbabweans through. A serious border fence is built and monitored. Home Affairs officials stop dragging their feet regarding permits. This is how they get bribes or how they solicit bribes. South Africans, especially white South Africans, stop hiring Zimbabweans and stop buying from them. And other South Africans stop buying from them. And if the world supports Zimbabweans militarily to overthrow ZANU-PF like they have done in other nations, SADC leaders stop lying about the situation in Zimbabwe. Zimbabweans are petrified of ZANU-PF and no one is willing to help them overthrow their corrupt government, which they say rigs elections. For that reason, they will not leave and South Africans can do whatever they want. But until South Africans are willing to help them with ZANU-PF, or until the South African government becomes as hostile as ZANU-PF, nothing will change. This is a summary, of course, from many of the Zimbabweans I received DMs from. Almost 8 out of every 10 foreigners based in South Africa, the DMs that I got were from Zimbabweans. With that said, many of the Zimbabweans that are in South Africa, arguably even most, are here legally. They have ZEPs, they have study permits, they have work permits, and some of them are even temporary tourists. You can actually come into South Africa from Zim and visit for 30 days. At the border, you get a tourist visa and then you leave. Many of them love South Africa and South Africans and are grateful for the country that we have and are envious of the freedom of speech that we enjoy here. And then a note from me. Many politically connected people in South Africa own mines and other businesses in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe imports a lot of goods from South Africa, which boosts the South African economy. And then my bottom line is many Zimbabweans believe that ZANU-PF is the problem and the reason why they are in South Africa. The ANC leadership supports and defends ZANU-PF instead of holding it accountable. Cyril Ramaphosa is willing to take Israel to the ICJ, but not Zimbabwe, for human rights violations. And that was the end. On Twitter, this post got over 92,000 views. On Facebook, it got over a whopping 625,000 views. I'm reading it to you on screen for people that may have not seen those posts. And that was just about Zimbabwe. But the DMs I got from people from the DRC, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, many of them who initially came here as refugees and have been here for 10, maybe over 20 years as well. I got DMs from people from Nigeria, got DMs from people from Cameroon, specifically English-speaking Cameroonians. I got some DMs from people from Somalia, from Ethiopia, who were trying to articulate the travesties that they have there. Some of them being like, there are chances that are in South Africa and that have seen that it's open gates and you can basically do what you want here. So they come and they open businesses. And some are even starting to fight over economic territory in South Africa as foreigners. I did not get DMs from Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, white foreigners from places like Europe, white foreigners from the Americas, and then Chinese foreigners as well. Understandably, maybe a lot of them don't follow me. Maybe some of them don't speak English, or maybe some of them actually really don't care. A lot of them are a minority in South Africa, and South Africans are not complaining as much about them more than black African foreigners, specifically in spaces like scooter couriers, some of the Asians in the spaza shops, gardeners, domestic workers, and the like. But yeah, man, to Zimbabweans, because it's tough. And just recently we heard that there was a failed military coup. And even worse, President Cyril Ramaphosa went to meet with Emmerson Mnangagwa, the president of Zimbabwe, on one of his farms, along with some very colorful characters. Apparently it was a working visit. Many people are asking questions. People like Mzi Khumalo own big mines in Zimbabwe, and other South Africans. I think Gates and McKenzie has been linked to mining in Zimbabwe as well. It seems like the South African government and politically connected people don't have an issue with Zimbabwe. They say that the elections are free and fair, but many Zimbabweans are saying if ZANU-PF was doing what needed to be done, we wouldn't be here. And we want to let you guys know that until you are as hostile as ZANU-PF, we will stay here and we will thrive here. Because the ANC government, South Africans don't want to help Zimbabweans to fix what's happening in Zimbabwe so that they can go home. For South Africans, I want to say your biggest issue is what's called the GNU today, but for the past 30 years, it's been the ANC government. They are the ones that are responsible for the lack of sovereignty. They are the ones that are meant to be in charge of home affairs, of border control, of deportation, and the like. We need to look within. To everyone who sent me a DM, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. And this is me sharing what you guys sent to me in the DMs. Penny all the black pen.
All right, I know some of you, it's your first time to pass through this channel. I want to say you are welcome. Please do not forget to subscribe and make sure you turn on the notification button so that at least every time I'm live, you're going to be robbed right here. I also want to send some love and light to those that are always joining me every time I am on. I want to say you're welcome. Also, thumbs up the video, share with others, and let's move on.
Zvimavhaisi zvake izvozvo zvanatsambara mafuta na tagwirema kuba kwaro zvaendwa hapachina kwavachaenda. Regai vaite zvavanoita izvo, bhozi chaakaratidza kuti haazivi zvaari kuita muntaraunda. Wakomberedzwa nevakomana ava, mbavha dzaari kuba nadzo mari. haachaoni mavhaisi ake nenzira kwadzo. Mapresident edzimwe nyika anouya, ivo ndo vanenge vari padhuze naye samavice president nguva nenguva, kubva kune last time pana uyu wekukenya the same. Tikati kuda tazviona iko zvino wekubotswana wauya the same, handi muri kuona. Ramaphosa wauya the same. Saka ava vanomirire chii? Vakamira sanani? Ari kuronga navo ka ndo mavhaisi ake zvezvigananda. Saka iye wadziya moto wembavha imbavha ndiye mastermind yeumbavha munangago. Saka pasi navo ngavaende.
Honorable Patrick Namasa, thank you very much for finding time and talking to us here at ZFM Stereo and allowing us in your space.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to clarify the provisions of Constitutional Amendment number 3 bill.
Perfect. Honorable, just to give a bit of a background, you are not just another voice in this debate, you are central to his foundation. We know that in 2024, as Secretary for Legal Affairs, you were the first to publicly outline the legal pathway for constitutional changes following your party's conference resolution. You stated unequivocally that altering presidential tenure would require 2 separate constitutional amendments, each subjected to a referendum. Fast forward to today, Constitutional Amendment number 3 is now moving towards Parliament after nationwide consultation, with the government maintaining that no referendum is required. At the same time, influential institutions such as the Zimbabwe Bishops' Conference are warning that proposed changes would shift power away from citizens and weaken democratic safeguards. So this is not just a legal discussion, it's a test of constitutional consistency, democratic legitimacy, and ultimately where power resides in Zimbabwe. Honorable, Zimbabwe adopted its constitution in 2013 after a national referendum with clear electoral cycles and safeguards. What specific constitutional deficiency does Amendment number 3 seek to correct today?
Yes, I think you need to break it down. It's a mouthful. It's a mouthful. We should have broken it down into specific questions. But let me start by clarifying that under Section 95, subsection 2B of the Constitution, it sets out the duration of the president's term of office to 5 years. And it further says that the 5 years must be coterminous with the life of Parliament. So that is the first point, that the duration of the president's term of office is 5 years. Then also Section 91, subsection 2, sets out the term limit provision. It sets out the term limit provision, and basically it limits the president's term of office to 2 terms. And it goes further to define what a term is, what the duration of a term is, which is 3 years or more. So anything that is less than 3 years is not a term. I think that is the fundamental difference. Where I came from in 2024, when I spoke at the SANPF Parliamentary Annual People's Conference, I said, and I envisaged that we were going to extend the president's term to a 3rd term, on the understanding that come 2030, His Excellency will give way to one of his vice presidents. That was the premise upon which I made that statement. Now, fast forward, I'm happy that Honorable Ziyambi Ziyambi, the Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, and the Attorney General's Office have been more innovative. They realize that 2 years is under 3 years or more, and it does not constitute a term. So it was very clear to them and I agree with them entirely, that we did not need to go through a referendum because it's not an extension of another third term. It's not a third term. It's just an extension by 2 years, and it's not a third term. So for that reason, they were more resourceful, more innovative, and the path they chose, that is the route, the constitutional route that they chose, is legally possible, legally permissible, and it does not require a referendum. My premise required a referendum because I had envisaged an extension of 5 years, subject to the understanding that the president would give way to one of his vice presidents come 2030. But that is not the route the Ministry of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs chose. They chose a least expensive and a legally, constitutionally permissible route.
Honorable,
as to the question of whether it takes power from the people, it's not taking any power to the people, from the people. No. As you know, we fought for one man, one vote. The one man, one vote is exercised when we choose our representatives into parliament. And that is not being affected, that is not being changed, it remains so. We choose our representatives. And what we now have, if this amendment goes through, which it will, we will have what we call indirect election of president. In other words, parliamentary election of the president. And in this, we are no different from other countries. The United States, which is touted to be the most democratic, does not have a one man, one vote when electing their president. We are in this way in similar situation with Botswana, South Africa, Angola, Germany, India, so it's not correct that we are denying the people their right to vote. The people will continue to vote, one man, one vote, to choose their representatives who will go into parliament. Besides, where have you ever found a country where every decision goes to a referendum? Every decision is the population participates. They always participate indirectly through their representatives. That is the norm everywhere, in every country. Even if you consider the United Kingdom, it's the same, and it has never been considered any less democratic. The leader of the majority party becomes the prime minister. In our case, in the UK, the prime minister is the effective administrator, political administrator in the UK. In our case, it will be the president. And when we go to elections, political parties contest, and they are led by presidents. In other words, the leaders of their respective parties are called, almost invariably, they are called presidents. When the president of a majority party wins, naturally, the representatives in parliament choose him as their leader. And the leader of each respective political party is determined at a congress. In our case, we have congress every 5 years. We decide who our ZANU-PF leader is. And in the case that we choose a president, when we have the majority in parliament, we naturally, those majority will naturally choose the leader who was leading them in the campaign. So I just wanted to clarify the misunderstanding that is happening, that, I said, yes, I said it, but it was premised, like I explaining, on the basis that we are going to have a third term extension for President E.D. Mnangagwa. And if that had been the route, it would have required an amendment to section 328, subsection 7, to remove the disability which is on President E.D. Mnangagwa to serve a third term. But currently, under the current constitutional provisions, we are not talking of a third term. We are talking of essentially a minimum of 2 years, which is below a term is defined in subsection 91 subsection 2.
Honorable, thank you very much for that detailed response. We'll get to more of that as we continue the conversation. When I ask you here, I'm asking representing the layman, the public sentiment, and one would ask, why is the already existing framework inadequate?
You know, a constitution is a living document. It must suit the circumstances of the time. When we enact this amendment, future generations may find something completely different. So I want you to understand that a constitution serves the interests of its people. It does not serve its own interests. It serves the interests of its own people. Right now, for the reasons that I'm completely in agreement with, first, there is the lengthening of the life cycle of Parliament and the life cycle, the term of office of the president from 5 to 7 years, both for the president and also for Parliament. You know, that gives us room, long time, to develop, to mobilize the resources and channel them towards development issues, and not to channel them towards contestation for power after every year, and contestation for power, which in our current situation, because we are still an immature democracy, always when the opposition loses, they always make unfounded allegations of rigging, and you go through another 2 years, those contestations are in court, and no amount of effort is put to the real work of development. Now, with the extension from 5 to 7 years, it means we are giving whoever wins a term of office for 7 years, he will have enough time to initiate and complete whatever he starts. You know, development is about continuity. If you have 2 years, 3 years, it's not enough to do long-term development, which is necessary for the development of the country. The country needs a sound foundation in road infrastructure, schools, clinics. You need to have a sound policy on reindustrialization of our country. All those things cannot be implemented overnight. They need a longer time frame. And it is for this reason that I think this amendment, especially lengthening the period, is a very good proposition. It reduces the opportunities for quarreling, which in our case always come after every 5 years and are very costly, not only to the political parties involved, but very costly in terms of development to the country. It costs a lot. Just imagine, I understand that the 2023 harmonized elections cost the government something nearly 200 million, I beg your pardon, nearly 200 million United States dollars. And we are not talking about what ZANU-PF, I know the figure, but I won't mention it. I'm not talking about what we spend as a political party. I don't know what the opposition spent as a political party. Okay, in the case of the opposition, I'm aware, of course, that they are funded wholly from outside. So it doesn't matter to them how often they go to elections and how often they bring up incidents for quarreling, because it's all funded from outside to destabilize us, to effect regime change, to exacerbate the illegal sanctions that Zimbabwe currently still suffers under. So I am saying, basically, Mr. Masanfu, development requires a long period of implementation, formulation and implementation. But implementation is the necessity if the country is to lay a proper foundation for development.